What do you guys think about inclusion in schools? Not the kind that I was used to, where there's a special ed class, a gen ed class, honor classes, etc. But I mean kids of all abilities learning side by side every single day. So I didn't really know what an inclusion model school was until recently. And when I learned about it, it blew my mind. I think because my son with autism has always been segregated in a class with only other autistic children. And the times that I would try to integrate him, starting as early as preschool, I remember taking him to tour different Montessori schools, and they all rejected him. Sorry, no, sorry, no. I even said, well, what if I have an aide or a nanny or just someone there with him for extra support? And they said no. So that was very frustrating. Well, today I'm talking to Erin Studer, who's the principal of one of the most fascinating schools I've come across called the CHIME Institute. CHIME is a nonprofit school in California that's built around a full inclusion model. About 30% of the students are neurodivergent. And so that includes kids with autism, developmental differences, different learning needs, physical needs, and 70% are, typically developing. And they don't separate them. They don't silo them. They learn together in the same classrooms with multiple teachers supporting different needs. And here's what's wild. The growing body of research is showing that when neurodivergent kids are segregated in school, put into separate classrooms, separate programs, they're actually way more likely to experience isolation later in life. As adults, they often have a harder time integrating socially and professionally. That makes me sad. But when kids grow up in inclusive environments around peers with a range of abilities, they're more likely to develop communication skills, independence, and real-world social confidence because they've been in the world, not separated from it. Makes a lot of sense. And here's the part that really got me. Inclusion doesn't just benefit the neurodivergent kids. It actually has no negative impact on typically developing students. And in many cases, benefits them too. They tend to develop more empathy, better collaboration skills, stronger emotional intelligence, and honestly, just a deeper understanding of other humans, which feels important. Like maybe that's the whole point of school. So the question is, if inclusion helps everybody, why isn't it the standard? Why are so many kids still being separated? And what would it actually take to change that? I'm so excited to get into all of this today with Erin Studer and really pick his brain about how this model works, how it actually works, what challenges it faces, and what the future of education could look like if we leaned into inclusion instead of separation. So please enjoy my conversation with Erin and join in below. I want to hear your thoughts.
It's a lot to be on. I do have to speak in public and do presentations sometimes. And you get a day like that where you do 3-4 things in a row where you've got to be on and you walk out and you're like, I'm exhausted.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When I tell you I will be in bed by 8 p.m. tonight, I got to say I'm in bed by 8 p.m. most nights. 8:30.
Yeah.
Is that insane?
It's what everybody says you're supposed to do. I mean, that's the good thing. Yes. Well, it's because, everybody's interested in sleep, right? Did you get enough sleep? And then, so it's 7 hours minimum, 8 hours preferred. But then there's this whole research, because I do a lot of brain science stuff, right? So there's all this research on sleep prior to midnight, right, is the best sleep. So even if you go to bed at 11 and sleep till whatever it be 7 or 8 or something like that, it's still not as good of a sleep as if you get it early. If you're getting half your sleep before midnight, that's pretty good.
Oh yeah. And sometimes I'm foolish. Maybe once every 2 weeks or so, I'll doom scroll. I'll go, okay, the kids are asleep. Let me not even watch something, but scroll on social media. And that's always a mistake. I've never been I'm so glad I stayed up till 1 a.m. learning more about the war and the tragedies of the world.
Now, someone who traffics in social media a lot, because I feel like you do, is that a brave admission that you're We've never felt good about doom scrolling. But
don't go on social media, okay? Yeah. It's bad. Except follow me. We're at Laura Clary.
Every day.
No,
check
because
out my new post.
Yeah, that's funny, but it's true. Watch me during the day or at a decent hour.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's when it's 10 p.m. and you just keep going. That's where.
Yeah, right. You kind of turned off conscious thought and you're just sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you don't get the sleep, and then tomorrow's just so much harder.
Yeah.
Right.
Although, I mean, just on the kid side of things, right? There's a lot of research coming out now that, that kind of video interaction that seems to dominate our society is not awesome for developing brains. And we got to be, as parents, very thoughtful and conscious of that. And when we put devices in our kids' hands, how often, how much, at what age can they have full autonomy on that stuff. So,
I went through a phase with my daughter, my 4-year-old, where she would use an iPad occasionally, and she turned into literal Satan. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, cool. We're not doing iPad anymore." She goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Satan."
Yeah.
You're turning into Satan. She goes, "No, I'm not." I said, "No way." So we cut it out.
Crawling up the wall.
So then we stopped, and she's literally amazing, like a different person. And it was just a few days of, upset about it, but whatever. I think use it for planes, or I don't know. Yeah. It's whatever works for your family, right?
It's there used to be a lot of panic about Saturday morning cartoons, right? I mean, Bugs Bunny was going to be awful for your child, right? And now it's we're all nostalgic for Bugs Bunny.
Do you know how many lives have been destroyed from Bugs Bunny?
Yeah. And Elmer Fudd.
Elmer Fudd is why my son's in rehab. No, I'm just kidding.
But I think that's, so it's we're always in this tension between new media and new things that are in society. However, I do think, what we see in these sort of personalized devices on short form video, when it's in the control of the kid and they kind of get unlimited access to it, that can be pretty problematic. A lot of parenting things come up. We teach parents, sometimes there's a thing called guided access on iPads where you can control where they go and don't go. And we teach parents how to use guided access, and they're like, this is the most amazing thing.
That's smart.
So you can put a timer on it. You can limit the apps. You can do all kinds of things. So
yeah. I always say, okay, my kids aren't getting iPhones till 17 that's probably not realistic, is it?
Well, I mean, I think there's...
they're getting Razr phones, flip phones.
Yeah, there are those phones out there. And I have those conversations with parents sometimes. They're like, well, my child needs the phone to call me. I'm like, okay, well, that's all there is. That's actually really easy to solve. Mm-hmm. My daughter went to school at CHIME, right? And so, and a lot of her friends had phones much earlier. We held all the way out to spring of her 8th grade year,
And that was holding out.
Wow. And she was like, Dad, I need the phone for this. I need the phone for that. And I'm like, I'm everywhere you are. There's nowhere you're at that you can't get in touch with me, right?
You work at her school.
Yeah. You can come to my office at any moment, right? It's fine. You don't need a phone.
That's hilarious.
So we got all the way out to basically high school.
Okay. So speaking of CHIME, what do you do for people who don't know? What do you do and why do you do it?
Yeah, so I'm the executive director at CHIME. CHIME Institute in Los Angeles is a nonprofit organization. We run schools for children TK through 8th grade. We have our charter school, and we have an early intervention program as well as a preschool in partnership with Cal State Northridge. And we are a model demonstration site for full inclusion. In fact, that's what CHIME stands for, Community Honoring Inclusive Model Education. And it's where all students learn together, regardless of socioeconomic status, background, ability, language. All kids learn together. There's no specialized programs for the English learners over here, the gifted kids over here, kids with disabilities over here. We actually bring everybody together to work in co-taught classrooms, right? We have teams of educators in every room, And it's what research says is best.
Wow. So kids with IEPs are in the same class as typically developing kids, gifted kids, whatever you want to say. They're all in the same class together.
Yep.
And with more than one teacher.
Every classroom gets a team, and, like there's going to be a general education teacher, special education teacher, usually co-teaching in about 2 to 3 rooms, throughout the day, paraprofessional aides who are there to support, and then the other people who also work at the school, right? So a speech and language pathologist, an occupational therapist, a counselor coming in and pushing into the classroom and providing additional supports and services and working as a team of adults to support all the learners to make sure everybody gets what they need. Because I think, when you think about how school is for most kids, nobody just goes through school and everything comes easily to them. Like everything's perfect. Their grades, learning new subjects, getting along with friends.
Except for me.
Right. Well, right. Except for you,
Look, not many people are perfect.
Very special case. Very special case. But for the rest of us, right? There's always a time when we've needed help, right?
Yes.
We need some kind of support or help. Even if we're a gifted student and flying through the academics, there might be other things that we need help with. And I think the challenge that we see so often in like schools in America is that we kind of provide help in silos, right? If you want, counseling help, you go to the counselor only. If you want, if you're an English learner, need that support, well, here are those specialists over there, and, et cetera, right? And what happens is, you get all kinds of kids who maybe don't need that help all the time or don't qualify for that service or whatever, but they need that help right now. Right. Yeah. For this moment, for this time in their life, for their educational trajectory. But everybody's like, well, not me. I'm not here to help that student, right? I'm here to service this program or be in charge of these kids or whatever the case might be. And you don't get that team of adults working together to make sure whatever kids need at any time in their learning process throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year, across grade levels is there when they need it, right? Yeah. And we always know some kids are going to need more support than others, but that's perfectly fine. That's how the world works.
You say that research says the inclusion model is best. What research are you referring to?
Yeah, there's a lot of different research out there. And like all research, some will say one thing and some will say another, right? Like someone's like, well, it doesn't work, And I think the research I point to is when we see high implementation of what best practices are in inclusive environments. We'll see some school districts across the country say that they're moving toward more inclusive programming, but they don't actually give the teachers the information they need to do the systems, right? To do the co-teaching, to do the positive behavior support approaches, to do universal design for learning, which is an instructional design model that makes sure we have multiple means of representation, expression, and engagement for all kids, right? You got to have that information in the hands of teachers, and you have to staff your school in such a way that those supports are actually readily available. And we just haven't put kids in classes, right? We just haven't said, well, here are the kids, good luck. We'll see you in May, right? We've actually staffed in such a way, scheduled in such a way, and trained in such a way that is our entire vision for this school. So I think sometimes when we see research that says, well, we don't see the effect that, people claim inclusion has for all kids, I sometimes ask, well, how'd you do it? Right? Did you really put all the conditions in place?
But what is the effect?
Yeah. So the effect that we see, and we see it at our school as well, is that, students with disabilities generally perform much more than their cohorts who are in segregated special education services, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times in schools in America, when we use what I call segregated special education services, where we take them out of the general education classroom and bring them somewhere else with someone else to do something else, right? We don't see that they stay on track in their academic development, on track toward graduation, right, et cetera. But when they continue to be with their typically developing peers, be exposed to standards-based instruction, and have the supports come to them so that they can remain with their non-disabled peers, we see that they make better gains, more durable gains, because they're still learning in that context with their peers, right? And we don't have to transfer these skills we learned over here to this new context over there. No, you're learning it right where we want you to use it. And they're more likely to stay on track for graduation because the things they're learning about, right, and being exposed to are the same standards-based instructional concepts that their peers are being exposed to, right? And if given the right supports, we're going to see that they're going to access that curriculum and make progress. And I think that's what we see, at our school, that our students with disabilities, like we just look at them as a group of students, far outperform their cohorts at the local school district level and across the entire state of California. And in some cases, quite significantly. And I think it's that aspect that I'm talking about, that they have the supports they need in that general education classroom, and they continue to learn the kinds of things that we're expecting those students to learn, right? Those age and grade level standards we'd want them to learn.
Thanks to Daily Look for sponsoring this episode. Okay, can we talk about something for a minute? I'm a mom. I don't know if you knew that. And getting dressed every day, it's like a whole thing. Hence the sweatsuit. It's a whole thing because my kids need things, and the podcast needs things, and life needs things. And by the time I get to myself, I'm standing in front of my closet like I own nothing. Every season I do this. Spring hits and I'm like, why are all my clothes from a different era of my life? Enter Daily Look. This podcast is sponsored by Daily Look, the #1 highest rated premium personal styling service for women. And what I love is that it's not an algorithm picking your clothes. You get your own real personal stylist, a real person who gets to know your body, your lifestyle, your actual preferences. And she sends you a box based on all of that. And you get the same stylist every time. So she actually knows you. Head to dailylook.com and use code IDIOT for 50% off your first order. You get up to 12 premium pieces per box to try on at home, which is honestly the best part because I can try things on in my actual life with my actual self, not under fluorescent lighting while someone waits outside the dressing room. Whether you need something effortlessly chic for a spring brunch or just a polished look for school drop-off where you accidentally make eye contact with an ex, Daily Look has got you covered. I just got my Daily Look spring box and my stylist absolutely nailed it. She sent me this perfect lightweight blazer that I've already worn like 4 times, a flowy midi dress that fits like it was literally made for me, and these elevated basics that make me look actually put together, even when I'm absolutely not. And that's the part that I really need. How it works is simple. You take their style quiz, you get up to 12 hand-selected pieces delivered to your door, you buy what you love, and you send back the rest. Free shipping both ways. It's like Christmas every time the box shows up. And I love that someone already knows what I want before I do, because I do not. And Daily Look has sizes for almost everybody. Extra small to 3X, sizes 0 to 24. For 50% off your order, head to dailylook.com and use code IDIOT. It's time to get your own personal stylist with Daily Look. Head to dailylook.com to take your style quiz and use the code IDIOT for 50% off your first order. Once again, that's dailylook.com for 50% off, and make sure you use my promo code IDIOT so they know that I sent you. One last time, dailylook.com and promo code IDIOT. I have a 6-year-old on the spectrum and a 4-year-old who's not. And he learns, of course, he learns from me and his teacher, but from his peers, it's really powerful.
Yep.
When he's around more verbal, typically developing children, it's wild what he picks up.
Yeah. I mean, peers are unbelievably motivating, right? To kids. And that's
He's
we
like,
know
same
that,
size, I'll listen.
Yeah. Yeah. We see that intuitively, right? Kids want to be with other kids. They want to do what the other kids are doing. They want to play those games. Like, we're social creatures, right? That we want to be with our people. And we see that, we have an early education program, as I said, in partnership with Cal State Northridge.
That was really cool. I toured it the other day. It was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. And that we're doing this kind of inclusive model work from the earliest ages, right? And we can show again and again, these truly like babies, children birth to age 3 in our early intervention program, and then 3 to 5 in our preschool program. When they receive the services, the same kinds of services that they could receive at home or in a clinic, but they receive it in an inclusive setting with typically developing peers, their rate of gaining those skills is faster. Their rate of retaining those skills is better. And I think that's the piece, when and I've been in California since 1998, been involved in education, special education since that time. One of the big things that we see in schools and in working with students with disabilities is that when we, take them into that segregated setting, that clinic setting, that office, that, separate place in the school, and teach them a skill, there's so much difficulty, right, in transitioning that skill that you learned over there back into that general education setting, right? And so many times we're like, well, they could do it with me. They could do it when we had the one-on-one session. They could do it when, whatever it is, whether it's a language skill or an occupational therapy skill or whatever. But when they learn it in context, in that general education classroom with those non-disabled peers, it sticks, right? They're so much more motivated to do it. Wow. They've done it in the context we want them to do it in. Yeah. We've taught it in a context specific way. So it's not, isolated and disconnected, but it's actually like, nope, we're going to use this greeting skill because you want to play with this student, right? So let's practice, right? Wow. And we've got that student right there, and we're going to, and the reward is authentic. You've just done that initiation skill in your language pragmatics, and look, now you're playing, right? And
what about the non-disabled peers? How does being in an inclusive model school benefit them? So,
and the research on this is also really clear. I mean, you can kind of go from the sort of do no harm research, right? What we find is that, having students without disabilities in inclusive schools really doesn't seem to impact, right? In any way. Like, we don't see worse performance. We don't see dramatically better performance. Like, academically, we kind of see a do no harm effect. So it's sort of like, there's no downside, right? Yeah. Then you see other research that says, actually, there's an upside. And I think when we look at the upside research, what we're actually looking at is some of our kids that we identify as typically developing peers, but really are kids who might be at risk for other reasons, right? Mm-hmm. Come from a socioeconomic disadvantaged background, maybe have unstable housing, maybe are a family that's moved multiple times, right? There's all these indicators in education where when we see them, we're like, they're not a child with a disability. Sure. But their education is kind of at risk here because of a number of factors. Yeah. When you have those students surrounded by a system of supports in a classroom, right? Wow. They're getting the help that they probably wouldn't qualify in any other way. Yes. But is already there for them. And it's already designed in a way through universal design, co-teaching, PBIS approaches that they're able to. Like, no one's hurting from extra support. No. And in real time support, right? You didn't need to have me fail in order for you to notice that I was struggling with this. Right? That's how a lot of systems in schools are set up. I need you to fail for a long time before we bring somebody to help. But when we have, a robust staffing model and an inclusive classroom, the help's actually right there. They're looking over your shoulder. They noticed you didn't get that one right, and they want to help. And you might be a student who never would qualify for any program under the sun, but you're still a student who's at risk, right, for success in school. And so I think when we see that research where we have positive effects on educational outcomes for non-disabled kids, I think we're kind of capturing a good look at those kids, right, who really are going to benefit. What's totally like not even in question is the social emotional learning that kids have and the empathy that's built. Like every time we look at inclusion from a research base, from the local surveys we do at our schools and other schools that we work with that are inclusion oriented, like the empathy measures are significantly greater, right? And it's not really just about, isn't it nice they help kids with disabilities? What it's about is they're in an environment in which difference is accepted. Difference is the norm. It is the standard. It is what we have all expected when we've come to this place. And so, our empathy for one another grows. Our ability to see the humanity in the person sitting across from us grows, right? And so I think those are unquestionably benefits. And I think it's also important to look at the opposite. When we design schools where we, the adults, tell the kids, you're all kids, but there's actually groups of you. You might have missed it. Some of you don't speak English at home. Some of you are really gifted. Some of you are kids with disabilities. Some of you are poor, right? Some of you are rich, right? And you'd like, well, did they need the adults to point it out to them? Well, I don't know. But we create programs in our schools that reinforce those groups, right?
Yes.
So you might go to your average elementary school. The sign outside says, "Welcome to Sunshine Elementary." And you walk inside, and what's actually happening a lot of times is they're running 3 to 4 parallel programs at that school. They've got a school for gifted kids. They've got special programs for your English learners. Down that hallway is the programs for students with disabilities. Over here, you typically developing kids, you can come over to here to these programs. And I say this not to say that there are bad people working in public schools. There are great people working in public schools. But we've designed in such a way that in our best-hearted efforts to help, we've actually reinforced boundaries between kids. Well, those are kids with disabilities. You wouldn't be friends with them. And those are the English learners. You wouldn't be friends with them. You're in the group of kids who are gifted. So you go over there and you be in those classes.
Wow.
Right? And I know what we're trying to do as educators. We're trying to help and serve. And, everybody who works in schools, I believe the vast majority, I'm sure there's some people who aren't in it for the right reasons. That's just how life is.
Sure.
But the vast majority of us are all in it for the right reasons, and we want to see kids thrive. But when we design systems, sometimes we do things in the design of the system that is negative to kids, creates barriers for kids, and we don't even realize it.
Wow. So why do you think the inclusion model isn't more widely incorporated?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I do think we're making progress. I do think we're,
is it? How common is it? Because I know for me, I certainly couldn't find anything like that for my son. He's always been so isolated. So far, he's only 6. So, there's hope. But I'm just saying, how common is it? I know so many moms struggle with this.
I think it is obviously less common than we want it to be.
Yeah.
I think we're making progress. I think we have the benefit of being visited by a lot of schools across California, across the country, even internationally. People are interested.
So schools are coming internationally to
visit CHIME and see how we operate our programs, to ask us questions. Not that they're necessarily required to go be who we are, right? We've made a very conscious choice about who we are and how we want to run our programs. But, to get an example, which I think is so powerful, a visual example, to walk into a place and, be like, oh, that thing we've read about, you're doing it. That's possible. That's an actual thing that can happen. Oh, that's interesting. Let me ask you questions about that. And that's kind of what we really try to do is, it's not just me, talking about research. I like to put teachers, paraprofessionals, service providers with those visitors and say, talk to them. These people do it every day.
Yeah.
I'm going to let them take a break from what they're doing, and they're going to tell you how they do it. And then they're going to turn right back around and keep doing it, right? That we'll never tell anybody to do something that we don't do, right? And we don't think is good practice. So I think there's interest. I think there's statewide initiatives in many states across the country, including California. We're a technical assistance site.
What does that mean?
Means we'll give our ideas away for free. We'll help anybody who comes. So there's a statewide project called Supporting Inclusive Practices.
Cool.
And the state of California funds this project. And it is a network of schools across the state, some who are seeking to improve and move the needle when it comes to their inclusion efforts, and some who are, may not be perfect, but feel like they're a little farther down the road. Like, CHIME's a great place. I've been the director for a long time. We're not perfect. Like, there's always things for us to learn. We can always get better. But we think we've got some really solid answers around how to design inclusive programming, and we're willing to give it away because we want to see more of it, right? I think why it is a slower change process than we'd like is schools are incredibly, tradition bound places, right?
Right.
I mean, like
this is the way it's been.
This is the way it's always been. We kind of start at the same time of year. We end at the same time of year. We do the same things. Our daily schedule is pretty much the same, and I had a colleague of mine say, one time, you want to understand how sort of slow moving the education system is in America. Think about how we dress up at graduation. We put on big robes and these mortar boards and these tassels. And we tell everybody how great they look. Oh, don't you look nice? And that's from like the 14 or 1500s, right? And we just like keep putting on this costume that's been around for, 600 years. And, which is just a sort of an analogy, but it's true. Like we really get into
need
routines.
Trendier graduation costumes.
Yes, exactly.
This is an emergency.
Yeah. If we could crack that one, floodgates open, like just all kinds of things. But I think some of it is about like that. Yeah. Slow to change process.
Sure.
I think some of it is about how we prepare teachers, right? We often prepare general education teachers and special education teachers separately. They don't share a lot of the same curriculum. They don't get a lot of the same information and ideas.
And so how do you work past that at CHIME?
Well,
what's the process?
I think part of it is that we insist on sharing knowledge and sharing roles, right? Yeah. Like we talk throughout all of our programs, the early ed programs and the charter school programs, about transdisciplinary service delivery, right? Super fancy term. It is real. I didn't make it up. But the whole idea...
I feel like you just made it up.
No, okay. It's out there. You can look it up. Google it on AI. AI will make up something for you about it.
Okay, what is it?
But it's, remember I was talking about silos, like a lot of services and supports and knowledge end up in silos in regular public schools. Really, the idea is that we are unsiloing knowledge. We're working in teams. If there's something share it with me. If there's something I know, I'm going to share it with you because we're working on a team on behalf of all of these kids. And I think it is really that process, right, of working together, sharing knowledge, planning every week, having collaborative conversations throughout the week, that we, become less sort of possessive of our knowledge and our skills and the ways in which we work, and more about like, well, we're here as a team to share all of our strengths on behalf of the kids. Yeah. But I think, on that teacher training piece, a lot of times, the people who become teachers, there's usually a couple different varieties. Either you loved school, And so you decided to become a teacher. You're like, I really felt nice here, right? Like teachers were nice to me. I want to be a teacher too. Or you didn't like school, which is kind of a weird pathway. But there are a lot of people who like didn't really like school and they're like, I can do this better than they can, right? Like I'm going to show them.
Tradition. My mom's side, my grandma was a teacher. My mom was a teacher. Her sisters were teachers. My cousins are teachers. I swear everyone on that side of the family was a teacher.
Yes, it becomes a family business. Yeah. It's like cops and firefighters in New York and teachers are just like, family business for sure.
Yeah.
But really the funny thing is no matter sort of like what got you there, what brought you there, you have an image in your mind, right, about what it looks like to do that job. And so most of us were not educated in inclusive classrooms. Most of us did not see teachers working together on a team, right? To teach a room of kids. Most of us didn't see universally designed lessons in which kids had options and choices and could get to different, end products while still showing the same concepts, right? So, when we train teachers or teachers think about what it looks like to do their job, it can be different from what we're asking them to do. Right.
Yeah.
So if you were a general education teacher, you've got your 25 kids or 30 kids or whatever, and you're teaching them and you're running the show and you're in charge and you put the schedule on the board and, all those things that we think of when we think of like a traditional classroom teacher.
Yeah.
And a lot of times for special education teachers, it's the same. Like you've got a smaller group of kids, you've got a little smaller room and you're working in groups and you're working individually and you're really helping these kids who are struggling to, achieve certain sets of skills.
Yeah.
And when we come along and say, okay, well, we're going to build an inclusive school and everybody's going to work together, we literally are telling them, you're now going to have a different job. It's going to look there's going to be a lot of parts that are the same and you're going to need all the knowledge, but now you're going to work on a team. You're going to have a partner. You're going to collaborate. You're going to co-own this room, right? And these kids. And while that can be really exciting, right? It can also be challenging. It can be different. Moving from a more traditional model to that model can be hard.
Sure.
And I think just, again, to look at the big picture in America, like these are all like jobs with contracts and things that get negotiated and how I work gets negotiated. Sometimes those things slow up the process, particularly if people have concerns about the change. They're wait, what does this mean for me as a teacher? Right.
Sure.
And so I think some of those things make it move more slowly than we'd want. I think sometimes too, and you might be able to speak to this as a parent, but sometimes for our parents who have children with disabilities, we tell them a story about their kid early on, and it's not necessarily true. And we tell them stories about what their needs will be and what their limitations are.
When you say we?
When I say we, I mean like doctors, people in the, child development world, people in the services world, right? When you have a child with a disability, you often start to, interact with different services in your, in your world. You're talking to your medical insurance. Maybe you're talking to a county office. Maybe you're talking to the regional center for your area, all these different entities. And again, everybody wants to help. I'm not questioning anybody's intent.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we tell them that traditional story about, well, what your child will need are these specific services that are provided by these very special people. And they happen in these very special places and segregated classrooms. And they're really not going to have friends in the way that you had friends, and they're not going to be able to, have birthday parties in the way that you had birthday, and they're trying to like prepare you. Yeah. Right. But I think unfortunately, then we get the wrong message about the possibilities of your child.
Wow.
Right. And that, it doesn't have to be that way. Kids have a lot of potential. And when they're educated and raised in inclusive environments with all children, and we put the necessary supports and staff in place, who knows what they're going to achieve, right? I'm certainly not going to create those limitations when a child's 3 years old and first getting diagnosed.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And especially too, people are kids are getting diagnosed so young, which is wonderful, but they're slapping on these crazy, I remember when Alfie was diagnosed at 2, it was like level 3 severe, may never talk, and he's like just doing amazing in many ways and sort of further along than I was told he would be, right? But still very much segregated. I remember even touring preschools, looking at different Montessori schools and them saying, no, we cannot accommodate. And it's like, well, what if I had an aide? No, it's wild to me.
Yeah. And I think those things are very challenging for families. And I think that, every parent, has the right to make their choices and parent however they'd like to. I think that sometimes I wish it was more of a conversation about possibilities and, time is limited. Everybody doesn't have time for a full conversation, but, I think we kind of process things along rather quickly, right? Like
we do.
Check these boxes. This is what you can get. Don't have high expectations.
Rather than assuming competence and setting themselves up in rooms that actually have opportunity, like these all-inclusive rooms, they have way more opportunities to succeed.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? And I think, again, if there were more of them, and it was more of a part of our practice of education as a state, as a country, we could talk about them being more legitimate options for families too.
Are there other countries that implement this model more?
I don't know if it's
I'm just
more.
Curious.
Yeah, I would say that I think it is interesting when you look across different countries, kind of how they approach it. Yeah. And there are definitely countries that are more or less interested in sort of inclusive model, programs. We actually have an international partnership right now with the school in Sweden, which is really interesting.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So cool.
They've visited us a few times. We visited them. It's all grant funded. So that's exciting too, right? When somebody gives you money to go and do these exciting and interesting things. And they are definitely much more, as a country and as a school, on a pathway to bringing all kids together, right? I don't want to say, they perfectly have, inclusion nailed or anything like that as a country. I don't think any of my colleagues in Sweden would say that either, but they definitely have more of a tradition of everybody coming to the public schoolhouse and, being included together. And then I see other countries, and I'm by no means trying to disparage any country.
Are you talking right now?
No. But I have a colleague in, England, and particularly when they get into the middle and upper grades, they're very interested in ability grouping. Like that's, really common in a lot of schools in England and that's even just talking about typically developing students. That's not even really referencing students with disabilities, that they do a lot of ability grouping, what they call setting, in their schools. And, he and I have had some conversations about that. We choose to disagree. So I do think there is that international component to this too, right? Like different states are different countries are different, and that can make it challenging for parents.
Oh, man. I even think about how I would have probably done way better at CHIME or a multi-teacher inclusion, because even me, I have ADHD, and I remember being in this overcrowded classroom with just one teacher, and I would get so distracted, but, and just really struggled in school, and could have used that extra support.
And I think some of it's about support. Some of it's about instructional design.
Oh, that right? too. Yeah.
We talk a lot about how we think everybody learns, how do human beings learn?
Yeah.
Right. And, we believe that kids need to be in dialogue with one another. They need to be solving problems together, working on projects together, right? They need to construct their own understanding of whatever it is that we're teaching, because there's nothing we know as adults so well that we can just say and have kids know it like we know it, right? Which I think is the interesting thing about, like, when we think about education, that's so many times what, either our education looked like or what education looks like on TV or something like that.
Yeah.
Where we have someone up front, a very smart person who says things and the kids go, yes, right? But that's actually not how people learn, right? You have to be actively engaged. You have to be in dialogue, debate, solving problems, working on projects. And so, and I know you've had a chance to visit us, like, the classroom should look active. The classroom should look engaged. The classroom, in our opinion, should not look like 5 straight rows of desks pointed at one smart person, right? We don't think that's how human learning happens.
How does it look?
I mean, I think, again.
Take me through a lesson.
Yeah. I think that there's the physical design of the room, right? We're going to be in different groupings. I mean, the furniture, it might be in pods. There might be learning tables or areas throughout the room. A little bit more freedom of movement, right? To get up, get your materials, go where you need to do.
Or stim if you must.
Yeah, stand, whatever. Get your wiggles out, all fine, all accepted. And then I think that while there's definitely going to be some teacher time, what we call frontal instruction, right? Because instruction is helpful. We do think teachers make a difference. There's that right balance of, collaborative practice, collaborative inquiry with the kids themselves, specific guided feedback as somebody's doing a thing, right? Trying a skill, working on a problem. I think there's opportunities to show what you know and choice, right, within that. And I think that's one of the things that often you see not present in a lot of traditional education settings is like, do you have choice? Maybe not about what you learn, but perhaps how you learn it or what the product is that you make. Right. Okay. So often, if a teacher plans a lesson, they're like, well, I'm going to do this. Yeah. And then we're going to practice it. And then you're going to independently practice it on your own. And then, I'll check it one more time before you go. And it's all very prescribed, right? We're going to do this thing in the way that I show it to you. We're all going to get the same outcomes at the end. What we find, is that not that somebody can't learn some things that way, they can, but it often becomes inherently unmotivating, right? When you don't have any agency or choice in what or how you learn. And so I think those are some key moves that our teachers will make is like, how do we have multiple means of engagement? Where's a time where we might give kids freedom of topic choice? Because because the standard is not about a topic, it's about a skill. And so now if you want to write, if we're working on essay writing, pick your topic. It doesn't have to be about the book we're writing or, the book we're reading. Smart. You don't have to write about that. Yeah. So like when you can flex choice or if, you do really need to learn about the American Revolution and that's just the standard and it's not going to change. Okay. There's no choice on topic. That's cool. But might you watch a video about it? Listen to a book about it? Play a computer game about it. Like, what are the ways you could learn about it? Do we have choice or flexibility in how? And then we could think about the what. What's the outcome? Must you write a 5-page report? Like, is that the standard? Or, do we have flexibility here? Right? Yeah. And I think that's one of the pieces around universal design that really helps us respond to all learners is we don't think that we're all doing the same thing at the same time for the same outcome, right? Wow. Yeah. Which is how a lot of school is designed in a lot of places, right? Yeah. And then we're like, well, it's really hard for them to be in here. Well, yeah, it might be hard for everybody to be in here, but they're just the canary in the coal mine here. Like they're the ones that are struggling most, but it might be hard to have no choice about the how or the what, right?
Right.
So,
yeah, right. Wow. That's pretty amazing. What were some challenges that you faced early on and how did you overcome them or tweak them?
Yeah. I mean, so like I always say, I've been director at CHIME for 15 years. Yeah. I was not the founder of the school, right? The school existed before I came. And I think that, I also like to say I didn't invent inclusion, right? Not that smart, not that brave. Like I was a teacher just, early on in my career trying to.
What kind of teacher?
I was a special education teacher first. And so I did teach in a special day class, segregated school setting, middle school and high school.
Oh.
Yep. Right when I came to California in 1998, CHIME didn't exist yet. I think the movement toward, the charter school didn't exist yet. Our early ed programs
Why
did.
Special education?
I think it was just something that honestly I fell into. Like that opportunity was there. I find topics interesting. Like I was an English and social studies teacher. So I find those things interesting. Books and history are interesting, but learning is very compelling to me. I love the puzzle. Why do we learn? How do we learn? How does the brain work? Right.
Yeah.
And I think you get into that a little bit more on the special education side of things. But so I was a special education teacher first, and then I did actually teach general education as well. I kind of went to the other side of things to see how that worked. And so being at CHIME, for the last 15 years has sort of helped me kind of marry those two experiences because both are happening, right?
Yeah.
All the time together. And then I think, so in terms of challenges, when CHIME started as a startup school in 2001, we had, grades K through 4. We were a charter school, so.
Define charter school.
Yeah. So charter schools, they're in a lot of states in California. It's an opportunity to really start an educational model or, kind of build a school based on an educational philosophy. Or in some cases, there are charter schools that try to root themselves in neighborhoods that are traditionally underserved in that city and provide a high quality school in that neighborhood. Okay. As I said, we had an early education program, preschool program, and our kids were going out to their local schools here in Los Angeles and not having those inclusive opportunities.
Right.
Right. And so our parents, who were at the preschool kept advocating, please, start a school. And the most expedient thing for us to do, right, was not to convince any school district to start one with us, but rather to create a charter school. And so we wrote a plan, had it approved by the local.
We?
So professors from Cal State Northridge, educators from the preschool program, right?
Yeah.
And wrote a plan, presented it to the local school district here in Los Angeles, had it approved for our nonprofit, CHIME Institute, to start a public school, start a public charter school. And we ended up renting a church campus up in Northridge that they used to have a school, and then it was available for rent. 70 kids, K through 4. We had no copy machine. Right. There's no, the teachers were making runs to Kinko's at lunch to get their, materials ready. So very scrappy, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of school startup story. And then a couple of years later, there was actually a vacant campus that LAUSD had stopped operating that they offered to CHIME and said, well, if you'd like to keep growing your program, we'll let you rent this facility. And so we've done that. That's how we ended up here in the west part of the San Fernando Valley and have been operating ever since. We've now got 730 kids, TK through 8th grade. So 4-year-olds to 14-year-olds. And we get kids from 42 different zip codes here in Los Angeles. So
that's wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're coming from all over.
All over. Really all over North Los Angeles County, right? They come in from, I always say we're a school of choice. Nobody has to come. Right?
Yeah.
Which always gives me a little bit of a panic. Oh my gosh, nobody has to come. But, what if nobody comes? It's nobody's neighborhood school. Nobody's required. But 500 families every day brave LA's freeways, right? To come to CHIME because they're compelled by the model. And I think that tells a story too, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think, here's this school that includes all students, that welcomes all children, regardless of background, language, ability, right? Whatever it might be. We're going to educate you together in a caring environment of dedicated teams of adults. And I think, families from all over Los Angeles look at that and they're like, yes, I'd like that. That sounds great. We have a couple of really successful replications of our model too.
Okay.
Wish Charter School in Westchester, down by LAX, down by the airport.
Wow.
One of our founding teachers, Shauna Draxton, she replicated the model on the other side of the city. Wonderful program. And then another one of our teachers, Jessica Tunney, who had who'd taught with us for several years and moved with her family to Orange County, started TLC Public School in Orange. And same exact model. About 90% of their students, 80 to 90% of their students are English learners. Very different student population, right? Down in Orange, California. And I think that's what's also exciting and gratifying to me. Like the model travels. It's not about being here at CHIME or like, this special place with these special people. We're special people. It's a nice place.
You're very special.
Thank you. But it's the research, it's the model, it's the techniques. You can implement this, on the west side of Los Angeles. You can implement this, in
Chicago,
wherever, right?
So how would people advocate if they want that for their children or?
Yeah.
Well, what are steps to take?
I mean, I think that, it's looking toward, if you're here in California, I think looking at some of the work of the Supporting Inclusive Practices Project, that's a statewide initiative. I think if we look nationally, there is actually a National Technical Assistance Center out of the University of Kansas called Swift Schools. So no matter where you are in the United States, if you went to swiftschools.org, you'd see all kinds of research and videos on inclusive practices. They have a part of their project now is called the Rightful Presence Project, right? Yeah. So, and it's around this idea that in inclusion, and this is even like kind of total cutting edge because it's even a critique of the word inclusion, even though I don't know a better word to use because we've been using it so long. But one of their arguments is the idea that you're included implies that someone has the power to include you or not.
Oh, interesting.
When in fact, you have the right to be present because you're a human being and a student, right?
Oh, say that all again and I won't interrupt you.
Yeah, well, that you have the right to be present because you're a human being and a student, right? It's not about me, graciously including you, but you have the right to be present here because this is your neighborhood school. These are your peers.
Oh my God.
Right. And so I think those are great resources out of swiftschools.org at the University of Kansas. And I think, TASH is a national and international organization, TASH, that advocates for the inclusion of individuals with disabilities. So I think there are people who are out there who are pushing on this movement, who want to help. I think there are places where you can go and see it being practiced. And I think it's also about, what we at CHIME refer to as the parking lot moms.
Yeah, yes. Tell me.
So we always talk this mythology, this sort of origin story of our organization is about the parking lot moms, right? These parents, we call them moms. They can be dads
parking
too, as a dad, but parking lot moms who just want the best for their kids, who refuse to be told like that they have to accept less than. And they gather in the parking lot outside the school and say, you know what we need to do, right? And that's really the origin story of our charter school. We talk about our parking lot moms at the preschool who were there saying, they've built this beautiful preschool. My child is at last accepted. You should have been at their birthday party,
my God.
On and on. And they say, we got to keep this going. And is that parking lot mom mentality that pushed on the dean of the College of Education at CSUN, and who pushed on CHIME Institute as a nonprofit and said, we need a school. So then we started a charter school in 2001. And then of course, we started a middle school in 2003. They're like, you know what? You got to keep it going. We need more grades. We got to go all the way through.
What about high school?
I know. Well, high schools are super expensive, but, I think there's different ways.
How do we make that happen?
Different ways to go about that. Money. Okay. If anybody wants to give it, anybody out in, the world wants to give us a bunch of money. Maybe we'll do that fully articulated inclusive high school.
Well, if you want to donate and help support, we'll leave a link below on this video.
CHIMEinstitute.org. You can support our work. Our work obviously involves a lot of the kids who are at the school, but it really involves advocacy nationally and internationally, right?
Yes.
Training
people to implement the model wherever you are, right?
Yeah. And so, yes, that's all I see. You'd make a perfect parking lot mom. You're already pushing for the next set of grades.
High school, baby.
Yeah. But it is that kind of advocacy. And I guess when you ask the question, like, how do people get involved? It's like, get those resources, get that information, look at those centers, supporting inclusive practices, the swiftschools.org, and, be prepared to advocate. Right? Advocate for your child, advocate for the model. And it can all look different, right? There are different shapes and sizes of this. There's no perfect, this is the perfect way to do it. We represent one way to do it, and we've been doing it for a long time. We're celebrating 35 years as an organization, right? We're going to be celebrating our 25th year as a charter school next year. So I think I would also point people toward that this isn't, something that's brand new, right? We're not like, this isn't, the first viable model or concept. Like, we've actually been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
And it can and should be done, in cities across America.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing such amazing insight and information.
Yeah. My pleasure.
Yeah. I think the majority of my followers are parking lot moms.
Yeah.
I really do. At least 80%.
Go get them. Go get them.
Go get them, baby. We love our kiddos, and you just have to advocate. Is there anything else you want to leave the viewers with? Anything you feel like you didn't say that you want to?
The only thing I would say, and this would be my little soapbox moment, is I think the more schools we can have like this, the better we're going to be off as a state, as a country, right? Like the message to all of our children that we can send is everybody belongs here, right? And when we can clearly communicate that by a school that we design, that everybody belongs here and everybody's welcome, and then really live that out and participate in that with the kids that we serve, I think it has a significant ripple effect into our community. And I'd love to see that happening all over.
Samesies.